Thank you. I want to welcome everybody back to the start of the 2014-2015 school year. Every year when I'm up here and when we get together for the last 7-8 years, this is an exciting time for us as an administrative team and for the buildings. They start coming back to life. You know, we work 12 months, we're here in and out during the summers, and without staff and students, the buildings are really just empty shells. So this is always an exciting time. And we are fortunate in education that we get a chance to reinvent ourselves and start anew each school year. You know, maybe with a different group of students, sometimes in a different grade level, sometimes in a different building. And that's exciting. It's an exciting time for me, and I hope it's an exciting time for you. The value and importance of what we do is never more apparent when a tragedy strikes. You know, we had a tragic situation that occurred yesterday, and it just reemphasizes what we do and the importance of us being here for our students. I want to compliment personally Dr. Rahman, our administrative team, Dr. Grosshandler, Mr. Smith, our other supportive staff and counselors who worked diligently all day yesterday, you know, on their holiday, and this morning to put supportive services in place for our students and our staff who may need our support and our help at this time. And we will continue to do that. We will continue to move forward and continue to be there for our students as best as we can as they cope and deal with this tragedy. Obviously, our thoughts and prayers go out to the family that was involved and for any other students who may be in need as the days progress. So please be aware of that as staff members. Any updates or additional information will be forthcoming from your building principals, and we'll communicate via that way. All right? But again, it re-emphasizes the value and importance of what we do for our students every day. Okay. As we begin with each year, we have new staff members. Nothing is consistent except change. Every year we bring new staff members on. And I'd like, when I introduce the staff members, if they wouldn't mind just standing up, and we could save the applause for the end, but just give a hi or a wave so we can recognize who you are. In the Special Services Department, Mr. Tom Toohey is our new Director of Special Services. We created a new position as a Supervisor of Special Services as Mrs. Jacqueline Hafner. Our Supervisor of Language Arts, Suzanne Cabrera. 2 computer repair technicians, Daniel Snap and Amilcar Perez. Maintenance support personnel, David Savaria. We actually hired 2 school psychologists as well, Ashley Halpert and Michelle Wiener. Chantel Molina will now be the Learning Disabilities Teacher Consultant when we can find a replacement for her. At the Beer Street School, we have 2 paraprofessional, Krista Ramonti. Cove Road School, Teacher of Language Arts Social Studies, Dina Graziola. And paraprofessional, Marianne Salviolo. Hazlet Middle School, Teacher of Language Arts, Ian Collis. Teacher of Mathematics, Shauna Labella. Teacher of Student with Disabilities, Danielle Schwanberger. And Lauren Such. 2 paraprofessionals, Teresa Burns and Mary Donahue. Still more. Hazlet Middle School, Lily Drive paraprofessional, Maureen Cassiano. Lillian Drive School, Teacher of Elementary, Grade 3, Allison Massaro. 2 paraprofessionals, Dawn Davey and Lisa Matata. Hazlet Middle School, Cove Road, Teacher of Elementary Music, Jessica Gluck. At Bragen High School, Teacher of Education Technology, Catherine Grasso. Teacher of Social Studies, Samantha Meeker. Another social studies teacher, Stacy Schiller. And courtesy aide, Suzanne Hollis. 3 paraprofessionals at Bragen Valley School, Christine Dockery, Donna Meyer, Kelly Kizar, Sycamore Drive Early Childhood Learning Center, new position, Secretary to the Principal, Carol Ann Kunzel. 2 paraprofessionals, Christina Orciello, and Christina Zazzarino. Welcome, everyone. I think you'll find in the Hazlet Township Public Schools 2 things. A committed and dedicated staff that really does believe in our mission of educating our students to achieve their maximum potential, and a supportive environment where our school community at large values education, really supports what we do, not just in their taxes and monetarily in our initiatives, but also in supporting you in the classroom, the endeavors and the things that you want to accomplish. So welcome, everyone. Today's presenters, obviously myself, I'm up here already, I'm the superintendent. I would assume everyone knows that already. Dr. Oman has some key things that he's going to go over, as well as Mrs. Schwartz. And then the HCA representation, Mr. Campbell is the president, wants to have a few words before we dismiss from that point. The agenda for today, I'm going to go over a little bit about public education today. And those that have heard me talk about it, sometimes I preach about it, sometimes I go on about it. It really is the core of our democracy. That all people have access to a high quality caliber education, regardless of your income level, regardless of the situation into which you were born. For me, is a core tenet of our democracy. And when that no longer is possible, that everybody has that opportunity to be successful, then we're going down a road that I don't think any of us want to go down. And for me personally, I don't think that's what our democracy is all about. So I'm going to talk a little bit about where we are in public education today. There's a couple of videos involved. There's going to be some interactive stuff where you can use your cell phones on a poll everywhere to get your input on what your thoughts are on some of the presentations. I'll try to be succinct, but the message for me is really important. And I'll go over that as the presentation evolves. Middle stage goals and the status, Dr. Oman is going to speak to that. We use that middle stage vehicle and protocols for us to develop a 7-year strategic plan that we think is really valuable and is going to help guide our growth over the next few years. But if we don't revisit it and we make it meaningful and we bring it to life, it's just a piece of paper or it's a document on the website that looks nice and it says you're accredited, and that's all it is. You know, we want that to be a living, breathing document so that it really helps guide what we do to make our schools better, and then we do stay true to our mission of educating all of our students, even some of those sub-performing groups, and even students in the middle that we want to push to higher levels. Achieve NJ, you may or may not be aware there's been some changes to the evaluation model and the state guidelines. Mr. Schwartz is going to go over that and tie that into how that would relate to our professional development. And then, as I said, the Hazlet Township Education Association is going to say a few words after that. Okay, so that's the presentation. After you break from here, you'll be required to be back at your buildings. I believe it is at noon, 12 o'clock. Is that accurate? Okay. All right, what I have here is a short video clip. It's a historical perspective. It's from a TED Talk. Does anyone know what the TED Talks are? On education, there's a lot out there, and there's some, Sir Ken Robinson and some other people have done these talks. This one's about a 5-minute clip, and it talks about the historical perspective of how we got to where we are today in education. Could you start that, Dr. Farley, please?
What is going to be the future of learning? I do have a plan, but in order for me to tell you what the plan is, I need to tell you a little story which kind of sets the stage. I tried to look at where did the kind of learning we do in schools, where did it come from? And you can look far back into the past, but if you look at present-day schooling the way it is, it's quite easy to figure out where it came from. It came from about 300 years ago. And it came from the last and the biggest of the empires on this planet. Imagine trying to run the show, trying to run the entire planet without computers, without telephones, with data handwritten on pieces of paper and traveling by ships. But the Victorians actually did it. What they did was amazing. They created a global computer made up of people. It's still with us today. It's called the bureaucratic administrative machine. In order to have that machine running, you need lots and lots of people. They made another machine to produce those people, the school. The schools would produce the people who would then become parts of the bureaucratic administrative machine. They must be identical to each other. They must know three things. They must have good handwriting, because the data is handwritten. They must be able to read, and they must be able to do multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction in their head. They must be so identical that you could pick one up from New Zealand and ship them to Canada, and he would be instantly functional. The Victorians were great engineers. They engineered a system that was so robust that is still with us today, continuously producing identical people for a machine that no longer exists. The empire is gone. So what are we doing with that design that produces these identical people? And what are we going to do next, if we ever are going to do anything else with it? So that's a pretty strong comment there. I said, schools as we know them now, they're obsolete. I'm not saying they're broken. It's quite fashionable to say that the education system's broken. It's not broken. It's wonderfully constructed. It's just that we don't need it anymore. It's outdated. What's the kind of jobs that we have today? Well, the clerks are the computers. They're there in thousands in every office. And you have people who guide those computers to do their clerical jobs. Those people don't need to be able to write beautifully by hand. They don't need to be able to multiply numbers in their heads. They don't need to be able to read. In fact, they need to be able to read discerning. Well, that's today. But we don't even know what the jobs of the future are going to look like. We know that people will work from wherever they want, whenever they want, in whatever way they want. How is present-day schooling going to prepare them for that world?
Interesting perspective. Greg, can you go to the next slide? What I'd like everyone to do, if you could use your cell phone, and we're going to take a poll of the audience and get your perspective without everybody calling out. It's a little more efficient this way. If you could text to this number, 22333, whether you feel this method of instruction is still valuable. When I say this method of instruction, it's where the students are seated in rows in a lecture format where the teacher's in front of the classroom sharing the information or the content that they feel is relevant. So, do you feel that method of instruction is still valuable? This is the number you would put in that you're going to text it to. And in the content, if you think the answer is yes, you would write 3540087 or 3540092. And we'll just take a couple of minutes to see what the responses are. It's a horse race. most things in education, right? There's no yes or no answer. It's divided. And if my math is right, I don't know, it's about 60-40, I think, in favor of yes and no. So, and I'm not saying that this method is valuable or isn't valuable. I think there is some merit to when you need to share information to a large group such as this, right, that you want to provide an opportunity to do that. I would argue, just my perspective, that it does have merit and it does have value. So the next, at times, the next question would be, you go to the next one, Dr. Farley, is what percentage of your time as teachers, okay, do you spend using a lecture-style format where the students are seated in rows? Is it greater than 50% or less than 50%? Now, this is anonymous, so no one, we can't trace back to who answered or responded. What he did. But I'd appreciate just to get some input on that, what your thoughts are. And that would follow the same format. You're texting this number here, and it's either greater than 50% or less than 50%. Right? Those percentages hold true for everyone. While the majority view it as valuable, the majority of staff use it less than 50% of the time, right, the traditional format. And I'm imagining the reason you would do that is you want to have more active student engagement, more student participation in what we're doing. I appreciate your participation in this. That video and these two questions talk about the past of education, what got us to that traditional format and instructional methodology where we produce similar people for similar jobs, which really most of them no longer exist. Let's go to the next slide, Dr. Farley. This is a brief clip about perhaps what the future could look like for education, and then we'll do something similar afterwards. Dr. Farley, if you could show us.
The single most important thing we can do is to make sure we've got a world-class education system for everybody. That is a prerequisite for prosperity. It is an obligation that we have for the next generation.
I looked at the current education system and said, what's wrong with it? And the biggest problem that I found was it didn't know how to motivate kids.
Every person alive, it's in our DNA to be motivated. I think the current model, and I'm not picking on any players, the current model is just really good at this, washing that motivation.
How can you make that 9-year-old sit in a class and say, do me 17 times tables? What for? What if I were to say that arithmetic, as we teach it today, is an obsolete skill? Okay? The whole world will erupt if I say that, because they will say, reading, writing, arithmetic. That's the core of whose education? Core of the military. Go back 200, 300 years in this country and say that, 300 years later, no one's going to teach anybody how to shoot a gun, and no one's going to teach anybody how to ride a horse. And the teacher is going to say, but, those are basic life skills. This guy will get killed when he moves out. He says, no ma'am, the world will have changed. These things will become sport. Shooting is a sport, horse riding is a sport. Will arithmetic be a sport in 2061?
We want technology that helps us create an environment where students are active and engaged, not just in memorizing facts, but in working with faculty to really create knowledge. Something like the iPad application for anatomy, I think is going to help them learn more efficiently because it gives them information when they need to know it. And one of the principles of adult learning is you should learn something when you have a reason to learn it.
To begin, connect us together.
We think there's a blurry line between play and learning, and that there should be an even blurrier line between those two things. When a learning experience is playful and exploration-oriented, it puts people's minds into a relaxed state where learning actually can happen the easiest.
I think the future of learning is really to add a new dimension to learning, which is the dimension of collaboration.
Collaborative Classroom is a place where people can share ideas that they may not have felt comfortable sharing in class.
There's always some kids that are shy or they don't want to raise their hand in class, and when you're told to do it at home, you can actually see their opinions and you get to know them as a person better.
Scientists recently told the world that Pluto is not a planet anymore, but it's going to take literally a decade to remove that fact from the United States' science textbooks. With connections, because anyone is able to improve on the materials and keep things up to date, we can make that change in 10 minutes rather than 10 years.
We hope that what we're doing is going to create a far more diverse group of university students because they will come to the university with just so much more self-directed knowledge, so much more passion and information about what they want to do. That's the future. A sober prediction might be that nothing will take place in the next 40 years, despite the fact that we now have gone from a PC to an iPad.
A 5-year-old today, by the time he's 25, it's going to be 2031. Can any teacher say that they are preparing that child for 2031, for an unknown world? But I believe that I can make a curriculum for that teacher. And that curriculum needs to have only 3 things in it. Reading comprehension is the most critical skill at this point in time for a generation that's going to read off screens for the rest of their lives. Information search and retrieval skills. If people know what are keywords, follow a link or not, it's a key skill. If arithmetic is an outdated skill, this is the skill that will replace it. And finally, if a child knows how to read, if a child knows how to search for information, how do we teach them how to believe? See, in our adult heads, each one of us has a little mechanism. It comes from different places. You and I have different mechanisms of how to believe. Sometimes you say, this is obvious. Sometimes you say, because so-and-so told me. Sometimes you say, this is rubbish. What's that machine inside? How early in a child's life can we put that in there? If we can do it really, really early, then we would have armed that child against doctrine. And I don't mean only religious doctrine. I mean doctrine in all its forms. I think our job as educators, the biggest job in today's information-saturated world, is to give the child an armor against doctrine. Just as in another generation we used to teach the child how to fight with a sword and how to ride a horse.
All right. Interesting perspectives. Dr. Frost, if you can take us to that question there. And before we start on that, I'm just going to share a brief story. Everybody knows what Wikipedia is, right? And you made that comparison to the planet Pluto on how long it will take for us to change that status from a planet to not being a planet. If you could, while I'm talking, we'll do the same thing. That's the text. And do you agree with the perspective, which is basically the synopsis of that video? Reminds me of a story. I graduated high school in 1983. So a year or two after that, I'm at a friend's house, and we're hanging around watching the football games, and something came up. We talked about the moon, how men had landed on the moon. And he had two younger daughters, actually three younger daughters, and the one was about 15, comes up to us and says, no one ever landed on the moon. This is around 1985. Those that are my age or older, you know, we watched people walk on the moon. It was a pretty monumental thing. And I said, what are you talking about? They landed on the moon in 1969. Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, you know, the whole thing. I watched it on TV live. And no, they didn't. And she comes and gets me one of those World Book encyclopedias. I guess they got passed down from generations. And she pulls out the moon in there, and it says, you know, I don't know when it was from, the mid-60s maybe, and it says, someday, hopefully, man will eventually walk on the moon. And I guess she had done a report on that or something like that, but it speaks to the outdated, antiquated nature of some of our print materials and how long it would take for us to update that, you know, throughout all of our textbooks and things. And that 10-year phase is just, that's just not sufficient anymore, that it would take us that long to update information. This is interesting. So we agree with this perspective. Things have changed and are continuing to change. And what we teach needs to change. That's the majority. There are still some people that do disagree with that. Dr. Fly, if we go on to the next one. Our participation rate is dropping, I'm seeing. All right, so the next question would be, if you agree with the premise that was up there, are we teaching our students the skills they will need to be successful for their futures? That's just a yes or no question on whether you believe we are or are not. All right, so we're trending about 2 to 1, if I can use my rough estimation skills for arithmetic, that says that we are teaching the students the skills they need to be successful. And I would argue that we are, and that there are maybe some things that we could accentuate more as we move forward in the future with our students as well. All right, I appreciate your participation. Dr. Farley, on the next slide. It's the last video, and then we'll kind of wrap it up after this.
So let me explain how revolutions work. Revolutions destroy the perfect, and then they enable the impossible. They never go from everything is good to everything is good. There's a lot of noise in the middle. If we look at the music business, first it destroyed the record label business, the internet, and only now is it enabling independent musicians to get heard.
Education tends to move in stair-step functions in terms of change, so when it does change, it explosively changes. The move from pre-printing press to post-printing press, that's a one-time transition in the history of the world in terms of education. Online education is going to be like that as well, and we want to make sure that as a species, the human species gets it right.
One of the revolutions that we're going to see is where less and less of education is about conveyal of content, because that's going to be a commodity and hopefully one that's available to everyone around the world. And a lot more of what we think of as education is going to go back to its original roots of teaching, where the instructor actually engages in a dialogue with the students and helps them develop thinking skills, problem-solving skills, passion for the discipline, the kinds of things that are much easier to do in a face-to-face setting and a lot harder to do in an online format. But for
Now what I want to see from school is get kids to want it. Create an environment where kids are restless until their need for information is satisfied. Teach kids to solve interesting problems, not to memorize answers to problems we've already solved.
Every time I get a question right, I get immediate engagement. I think the teacher has to step back and say, today's topic is this. But open your notebook and figure it out for yourself.
What we need are teachers who will look people in the eye and believe in them and push them forward. And it's hard to do that on the internet. It really needs to be done in person.
Schools decide to be better because they see children being better, and teachers, once they tell the teacher's teacher that says, we're in it for the outcome, not the income. You know, teachers are there because they can see the change in their children. If you add up every child in history, more children will leave school in the next 30 years than they've ever left school in history. If I was going to make one change, I'd make their school be just a little bit better. And that will change history faster than anything else.
Ended on a positive note, right? And I would agree with that. Little changes we make in our education can make huge changes in students' futures as we move forward. And teachers, classroom environment, one-to-one settings, it's extremely relevant. I think as we move forward, we have to define that a little more and make sure that people understand the relevance of what we do in a one-to-one interactive environment or in the classroom with the students as opposed to an online format. And education is really not the learning of facts. Almost everyone has a smartphone. I can't think of any fact I can't look up, from who won the '86 World Series. All right, everybody knows that one, New York fans. That's the Mets, with Mookie Wilson and Brunner. But like, who won the '79 World Series? We went to a Rod Stewart concert the other day, a couple of weeks ago. How old is Rod Stewart? You look it up on your phone. That kind of information that we used to have to know in order to have access to is so readily available. Take it one step further. How to solve a quadratic equation. Look it up online. Look it up on your phone. I think to my own daughter, who they have a summer practice for math work, they have to do 100 problems or so. Half the kids are looking up online how to solve those problems. And I'm not sure that's the best way to do it, but that information is there. So I think the focus on what we teach needs to change to thinking skills, how to be critical thinkers. We're doing a scientific experiment. Have the students understand if we change one of the variables, what would then be the impact on the outcome? And work on that and try those different things as opposed to just going over the procedures. Yes, this is the scientific method. These are the steps that we employ to get to that point. And that's critically important. So what does all this mean? And again, this is what it all means from Bernie Bragen's perspective that I want to share with each of you, is how we do business is and will continue to change. It's changing right now. From flipped classroom models to access to information all the time, to our online textbooks, to the interactive smartboards, and every and anything in between. It's changing. It's changing now. And many of you are embracing that change, and it's going to continue to change. The difference between past technological advancements is the connectivity on the internet is the rate at which things change is accelerated. Do we want to be a part of the process? How do we remain relevant? Here's my concern. And those were clips I've taken from video things. Each one of those clips were about 20 minutes long. If you saw the one in the middle, a number of those people that were talking owned companies and were presenting on different devices, from the Newton device to the little learning blocks devices to the, as much as even iPads and that software. If we allow other people to define education, they're going to say they can do it better and more efficiently than we can. And that scares me. I love what we do. I love what I do. And what we do is extremely valuable. Having a group of children in a room with a teacher or several teachers and having that dialogue in a dynamic format, you can't replace that in an online environment. It cannot be replaced. We need to help change what we do and redefine it. Can we accentuate that learning with some of the other things we do? Absolutely. And I think if we don't, then we run the risk of outside people trying to define what we do. And we're better than that. And we're better than that in Hazlet, and we're better than that overall. Because once a corporation takes over, then it's a whole different ballgame. What are some of the teaching implications? These have already happened. Our building and classroom structures are changing. How many people have ever used that flipped classroom model? I know there's been a number of people, just by a show of hands. I know there's people that do it in our district. I see it on a regular basis. That allows students to have access to information on a regular basis. That allows you to put the content that you would normally talk about in a traditional format online, so they can do it before they come to classroom, and then come to classroom and work on those problems there. We're already changing the way we do business and the way we're learning, and that's going to continue to evolve and change. With opportunities for more individualized learning. Maybe the class structures that we have, that we go in lockstep, kindergarten, first, second, that may change too. I'm not sure. But the future is open. It's going to impact the structures that we have in our school system. The roles of the teachers and learners are continuing to evolve. It's not that long ago that all teachers were the sage on the stage. We're not that role anymore. We're a catalyst. We create environments for students to be successful and learn. We're employ a coaching model. We put students in groups, collaborative groups to work together in their classroom, across the country, across the world, and create those kind of environments where we set the environment up for learning, monitor and adjust it accordingly. Learning is becoming more individualized. You hear about differentiated instruction. We've been hearing that for 20 years. But technology is allowing us to have more individualized learning programs for students and to assess their outcomes in different ways. And the learning never ends. We used to, not that long ago, in this exact building, I know in this room, we talked about allowing kids to have their cell phones in school. And that was like new. That was a big deal because kids were connected all the time except at school. When they came to school, we had them shut down, turn off their phones, and yes, turning on the phones at times does create problems for us. With kids texting and doing things they shouldn't do, and we try to hold those students accountable. But for the vast majority, they stay connected to the information and the learning, and it never ends, because that's what they do at home. If you have a child at home, you ever try to take their cell phone away for a portion of the day? You have an adolescent or a high schooler? I try to do that in my own home. Just try to, get away from that for an hour or 2 hours a night. And no, you don't bring your phone in your bed at nighttime. You sleep at nighttime in your bed and don't answer text messages at 3, 4 in the morning. But they want to be connected all the time. That's the world in which they're growing up. And the learning for them and the connectivity never ends. And for us, that we're not brought up that way, that's new, that's different. All right, I'm the superintendent. This is the kickoff. Want to have a great year. Why am I doing this? Why do I present this information to you? One is because we have a really and truly professional and dedicated staff in the Hazlet Township Public Schools. I'm extremely proud to lead this organization. I say that everywhere I go with everyone I talk to. My job, I don't want to share this with you, but you guys make my job easy, or easier than it could be, because I know we have quality people doing the job. And people ask, well, what do you look for in a teacher or an administrator? I look for someone that I would want to work with my own children. And if I want you to work with my child, then that's someone that I want to work with that has a children. We have a great place here. I want this to continue to be great and continue to move forward. And I'm a little bit scared, not because of you, because of what's going on out there. And if we let outside forces determine what education is going to look like moving forward, and we stick in that model of a traditional format for the majority of what we do, we're going to let them do that. So the reason I bring this up is twofold. It's the class of 2015, who's graduating this year, and the class of 2027, who are the kindergartners starting this year. Scary, right? We have a lot of initiatives and things that we normally have to do on a regular basis. The example, the Common Core is a significant change in what we do. Asbury Park Press on Sunday had a big article on the pros and cons of it. Whatever those positions are, it's aligned to our curriculum, it's our expectations for New Jersey, and it's a requirement that you have to do. The new Achieve New Jersey standards for teacher evaluation and administration evaluation, we don't have a choice, we have to do that. Writing SGOs and things like that, we have to do that, and assess student performance and things like that. State assessments, we have to do that. And we get evaluated on the performance on the state assessments, although it's changing now with the Park assessment. HES code test in the high school is eventually going to change, so we'll see what that looks like. All those things we have to do. We have to. It's state law, it's requirements, it's what we have to do moving forward. But here's the thing. If we only do that, we're missing something. Because if we only, and we can easily just focus on that because there's a lot to do there. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of things we have to do. But if we only focus on that and not move forward with the technology and embracing some more of the flipped classroom model, the individualized learning, the connectivity, the collaboration with students, and teaching the students to work together and to think as opposed to sometimes just memorization of skills and things because that's what we did and that's what was done and that's what we're going to continue to do. Then we're missing out on the big picture. And the big picture is we need to make sure the students in 2027 are as well prepared as I know these students are. So that's why I wanted to bring this to you today. And that's all I have. Thank you. Now we have Dr. David Roman, our assistant superintendent.
The manner in which we engage collectively as an organization will determine the outcomes of what we achieve. Building upon what Dr. Bragen has spoken about, I have the distinct pleasure of talking to you about what it is that we're doing in this district as a conversation, organizationally, systematically, strategically. Sounds like fun, right? We are the only school in Monmouth County to be Middle States accredited. So what? Here's what is the so what. What we have accomplished in this district is articulating that we have a plan, that we are coherent in what we're doing. Pre-K 12, that is an immense task. When we look at things like Achieve, or whether it's Goals 2000, the Clinton era, the Reagan era, the Bush era, NCLB, all they were asking educators to do is to develop a plan that allows you to communicate effectively about what you're doing. So let's not worry about Achieve. Let's not worry about SGOs. Let's worry and focus on what Dr. Bragen was talking about, which is really that we are relevant as educators. That what we do matters, and what Dr. Bragen mentioned 2 years ago is still in play. That we have developed a plan that allows us to demonstrate what we're doing to self-actualize. No one in this room shows up and says, you know what, I want to do a bad job. I'm going to school today because I don't care. We do care, and our plan will signify that. So what I want to do today is express to you what it is that you're doing to give us, as a district, a common language of what it is that we're doing, and to demystify some of the junk out there. Standards for accreditation. You love this document, right? I have it underneath my pillow. But what is it really talking about? It's really saying, what are the qualities and quantities of the things that you're doing every single day that are of value? Districts are communities. Districts are relationships. So this speaks to what are the relationships that we're doing. What is the philosophy and the mission of the district? How are we spending our money? How are we successfully facilitating what we want to get done within the district from an academic perspective? What does this mean when it says health and safety? Now you can look at that and you can see inside of their head
SGO, achievement, but it's just the quality of what we're doing. And this is important. I often mention this to the administrators. If we were mechanics, we would go to fix a car with a certain set of tools, or else we would not be able to do it. This is our language. This is our tools of what it is that we're doing, collectively. Collectively. You having fun yet? I got more. Profile of an accredited institution. Us. And we should be very proud of this. This is what successful school districts do. This is what Middle States said you're doing as teachers, as a whole organization. You are doing the best thing that's possible in the public interest and in accordance with ethical practice. We are accepting responsibility for the level of performance of our students. We are doing this. That's phenomenal. We have meaning. We are not obsolete. Additionally, we are sustaining and focusing on implementing and monitoring what we're doing. And right there is what Middle States is all about. It's really a strategic plan. It's the plan that you have to rise to your students. And we recognize, as the administrative leadership of this district, that what you do matters and what we do supports you in getting what needs to get done. That's what matters. This should be in your classroom, and it should be understood by students not for any type of an assessment or a test or a quiz. It should be there as an understanding, as an articulation of what it is that we're doing. That we, collectively, as a district, feel that we need to take a look at a few different things to move our students forward. We, as a district, have decided that we need to look at our underperforming subgroups. So guess what? There's a chief. There's the Common Core. We're aligned to what we need to do, so we do not need to be concerned with worrying about a mandate that's coming from the state. We own the mandate. You own the mandate. We, as a community of educators, want to focus on student enrollment and advancing academic courses in grades 6 through 12. What does this mean? It means ADA in the middle school. It means block scheduling at the high school. It means advancing AP courses. It means that our pre-K and our grade 12 are vertically articulating about what is relevant. That's all that means. But it really means what you're doing in the classroom when the students arrive and you say, you know what? It's important for us to understand the Common Core and what that means. It's a tool for what we want to do to achieve greatness in this district, and also individually for students and for ourselves. This makes sense? You with me? There will be a quiz, I can promise you. So here it is in a nutshell, something's very, very important. It's what Dr. Bragen was speaking to us about, and everything that he was trying to say. The nuance of what Dr. Bragen was trying to share with us is the following: that we want to create learning environments that are optimal, and that we can measure them. Measurement is not a four-letter word. Measurement doesn't mean I got you. Measurement means, are we doing what we said we need to do? If not, let's take a look at that and perhaps alter it, modify it, change it. And that's the conversation we want to have with our students as well, and with society in general. That what we're doing is valuable. We're looking at what it is that we need to look at to ensure the integrity of our plans. That's it. I'm a little passionate about this, can you tell? I got issues, clearly, but this is important. Imagine the dinner table with my wife. She loves hearing this stuff all the time. Organizationally, Dr. Bragen mentioned flipped classrooms, energizing the nuances of technology to ensure that how we communicate goes across globally. We invite you to be involved in that. We fund that fiscally so that you can be engaged in that with your students. So this is Middle States. It's a conversation about what we do. In a nutshell, it's a relationship with what we're doing. It's hard to communicate when you're busy doing your thing, we're doing our thing. It's like, okay, we're disconnected. It's just a connection of ideas saying we're aligned to what it is we want to accomplish. Then we share that with the state. And the state comes in and goes, check, you're doing a great job, and they are, which means you're doing a great job. And we are all collectively doing a really nice job. Hence, the only district in Monmouth County to be Middle States accredited. By the way, put that on your resume. And that's good for your students as well. It means something. It has value. Moving forward, I want to talk to you about what it is that we want to do and how we want to continue to invite you into the conversation because your voice is important. I mentioned this before, but basically here it is. We are aligned. And this will be articulated by your building principals, and I'll outline some things for you here, but our district goal, example, communication. We are trying to effectively communicate to you what it is that we're doing in this district and how we're aligned to what's happening in the classroom. That reflects itself in what Heather is going to be speaking to you about and what your building principals will be speaking to you about today. Administrative goals. When we meet with the administrators, we have conversations with them about what is it that you want to accomplish personally. How does it tie into what you want to do? How can you be self-actualized so that your building and staff is self-actualized? We ask them to do that with you as well. And we're asking that you do that with your students as well. Connections, relationships. Here's what we're doing. Teacher goal. The most important element. Nothing else matters but supporting you to be able to support students. And we recognize that. And then the building goal is just an encapsulation of all of that. Everything I just spoke about, and taking that and putting it in the palm of your hand and saying, all right, now what's our goal collectively? So the district goal is communication. So what does that look like in your building? It may look like something different pre-K than it may look like in the 12th grade. But then there's also a vertical piece there. Well, how do we connect that? How do we make sure there's some seamless trends that are happening? PDP, SGO development. Now, perhaps this should be a four-letter word, but it's not. Because one of the things that we need to recognize about the SGO is that what is being dictated from the outside does not dictate what we own from the inside. And Heather has some really good news for you about what that means, but more importantly, it really means what it is that that does when you reach a student. Alignment, alignment, alignment. Aligned to observation, evaluation, lesson planning. It does not mean we got you. It does not mean your SGO is not aligned to the district goal. It doesn't mean, hey, let me write you up here. That's not what we're about. That's not what we're interested in at all. What we're interested in doing is saying, so we said communication is important. How are you effectively communicating in your classroom to students? What can we do to assist you to accomplish that goal? I don't know, tell me. It means working with the principal saying, you know, for me to communicate, I need some technology. Or maybe I need to be able to take my classroom out and do something different. I don't know. That's where your expertise comes in. And then we define what that observation looks like. More importantly, what that lesson planning looks like. The evaluation doesn't matter. It'll take care of itself. I can assure you that the directive from the superintendent and from all the principals is not to say, we got you, it's to say, how can we help you? How can we help you? Continue the conversation. Purpose of future meetings, the importance of staff involvement meetings, reporting out at building-based meetings, dates and times of future meetings. Middle States is just an awareness of what we're doing. It's something that we continually build upon. This year, we have on our website, by the end of this week, the district Middle States accreditation process of where we are right now. We're going to do something different, though, as well, which is when you click on that, you're going to find your school's Middle States accreditation plan. And that's really the micro of what it is that you're doing in your building, connected to the macro of what we're doing for the district. You're invited to start being involved more attentively to the conversation of what's happening in Middle States because it will affect what's happening in your building. Whatever is in that document will dictate the language of what it is that you're going to be doing for the next year or two. So if you think of something that's relevant, that's important, that's worthwhile for you to be involved in with students that you feel needs to be in that document, please have that conversation with the principals, because the principals are being very thoughtful about what they want to accomplish in their buildings with the supervisors about how it is they can achieve a goal. Building-based, PDP, observations, all those different connections. I'm almost done. I'm glad none of you applauded on that one. Here are the dates. There'll be individual school implementation team meetings. They'll be determined by your building principals. And then we have a set of district dates. At the district meetings, what we do is we try to coordinate all the things that are happening in your building, and we say, okay, what is it that we need to now do to align and support you in what you want to do moving forward? All this makes sense? You know, I often say this to my administrative team when they look at me like this, and I say to them, I hope that your students give to you what you're giving to me right now, which is that look of like, ah. Does this make sense? Yes? You with me? I can do it again. That's wrong on a lot of levels, by the way. I thank you for your time.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. I hope you had an enjoyable summer. And I'm going to be going over a couple things with you today that you will hear more in-depthly in your faculty meetings, in your department meetings over the next 2 days. I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about Achieve New Jersey. We have some things that have stayed the same. Okay, the model itself has stayed the same. That's good news. Okay, we don't need to do anything differently this year than we did last year. Teacher practice is part of it. That's the observation tool. We will be continuing to use the Danielson model for 2007. That tool has not changed. Everybody's gotten used to it. A lot of what Dr. Bragen talked about today, about how, what are the students doing? That's everything that goes into getting a 4 in that observation model. What are you doing? That's your 3. But then what are the students doing in your classroom to earn you a 4? Okay, that's the observation tool. The student growth objectives, we still have them. They're still there. We're still going to be writing them. Student growth percentiles, that's staying the same for some of us, but there are some changes that are coming to that. Some good changes, and we're happy about that. And then again, we're going to be looking at the summative rating. So for teacher practice, remember it's all about 3 observations. So our non-tenureds for year 1 and 2 are going to be getting 3 observations where we look at 2 long observations, 1 short observation. A long observation is considered 40 minutes or longer. Short observation, 20 minutes or longer. Years 3 and 4 in the non-tenure process will be getting at least 1 long observation and 2 short observations. And then our tenured staff gets 3 short observations, okay? So no changes there. That's all stayed the same. Our student achievement measures have stayed the same. A student growth objective is an academic goal that teachers and educators set for groups of students. Okay, that's what it is. What are the students doing in your classroom, growing from the beginning of the year to the end of the year? Okay, it's not about a test. It's not about an assessment. It's about where are your students starting the year and where are they finishing the year. And if they're starting the year here, hopefully they're finishing the year here. That's our goal. That's our student growth objective. Specific, measurable, based on available student learning data, aligned to the appropriate standards, whether you are in a department that's using the New Jersey standards or the core curriculum, the Common Core standards. We need to look at those standards and we want to write our SGO goals based on those standards. And then our student growth percentile. Okay, the state is still using it. We're talking about it this year, even though we don't have the scores yet from last year. And I realize that's frustrating for some of you. But there are some changes to the student growth percentile this year that we're going to talk about. The percentages have changed for everybody. Okay? The state went back, they met with various groups of people, they looked at different things, and changes have been made. So for those of you that are in the 4th through 8th grade language arts and math, your summative rating is going to be based on 3 things again. 10% for the student growth percentile from 30. That's a huge change. Okay? 10% this year instead of 30% last year. 20% on your student growth objectives from 15%. And then 70% is teacher practice, which is the observation tool, and that's from 55%. So that's a drastic change for those of you in the 4th through 8th grade math and language arts areas. Okay, a change that I hope that you're happy about, because we are. And then our evaluations for our other teachers on staff, 20% for your SGO from 15%, so that number is up, and then 80% for teacher practice from 85%. So that number went down a little bit, okay? Looking at it from a pie chart standard, you can see those are the differences. This is all on the Achieve New Jersey website if anybody wants to look closer into it. And then how does this tie into professional development? This year, our professional development calendar is a little bit different. We have 2 full days. Again, today is considered a full day of professional development. It'll be in my learning plan. October 13th, which is Columbus Day, that's our other full day of professional development. We're going to have 4 half-days again this year, okay, as you can see. And then we have 20 building-based meetings this year over the course of the year. Change from 25 from last year. Those days have not changed, so Tuesdays, again, will be Raritan High School, Lillian Drive, Middle Road, Raritan Valley, Sycamore Drive, and then on Wednesdays, Fear Street, Cove Road, and Hazlet Middle School. This year, when we write our individual professional development plans, okay, again, we'll be doing them through my learning plan. What we want to do is we want to remember our observations from last year. Okay, so we want to keep in mind areas that we may have needed growth, areas that we personally would like to grow in, and we want to write our PDPs based on that information. We want to align to the teacher's role as a member of a collaborative professional learning group. Okay, so if within your building you are involved in professional conversations, you're involved in a group, whether it's a grade level group or a department group, you want to include that in your PDP. And you want to make sure that your requirements are met. So those 2 points, remember Achieve New Jersey and professional development, will be gone over more significantly in your faculty meetings and in your department meetings. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I will be happy to address any of your concerns. If you have any professional development ideas, I would love to hear them. I would love to make sure that we get them in your buildings and in your departments. And I want to wish everybody an excellent year. Good luck with everything.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. I too just want to reiterate, I wish everyone that has a great school year as we kick off the year today for the 2014-2015 school year. We're excited about starting the new year, as I said before. For me, this is always an exciting time. It gives us a chance to reinvent ourselves, to revitalize what we've been doing. We start out with a clean slate, a new group of students, perhaps a new building, a new grade level. So before I turn this over to Mr. Canwell, which is the HCA president, I just want to formally wish everybody a happy, healthy school year and have a great start to the school year. Thank you. Mr. Canwell?